10th, 2024.
Didn't realize it was sound again.
This open meeting is being broadcast live by Westford Cable Access TV and recorded for playback online. By participating, you consent to your likeness and your audio being captured in those recordings. So the first agenda item for 7 o'clock is open forum. Do any members of the commission have something for open forum? Sierra, do you have anything for open forum?
Just want to mention that if anyone's here for 64 Lakeshore Drive North, that they have requested to continue until the July 24th meeting without discussion.
These over here so we can share.
You didn't bring your packet?
Usually brings my packet. 'Cause I read
Oh.
everything on
Okay.
it. And she didn't.
Okay.
Our next agenda item is a continuation of a public hearing for Wilma Realty Trust, 426 Littleton Road.
Good evening.
What'd you do to yourself?
I'm getting a new hip tomorrow.
Congratulations. Good luck.
You.
Can't wait.
I have new knees from years ago, and it's wonderful.
How long are you going to be
To go,
laid
I
up?
had no issues, and then I got a little pain, and within 5 days I couldn't walk, and
Wow.
Wow, I was
I
going to
went
say,
in
this
to
is
see a
sudden for you.
Went in to
Yeah,
see a
'cause the
doctor,
inside-
and he said, "Ooh, arthritis and bone stuff," and
And here we are.
now I'm going to get new
Hip
parts.
is easier than knees, too. You'll be fine.
And it's day surgery.
Life has changed.
Day surgery.
I had 3 days in the
We,
hospital.
we
I don't
operate at
do that
9:30. You'll
anymore.
be leaving at 4:30. I'm like,
It's nuts. It's
How is
really
that even
nuts.
possible, yeah.
you're just going to
It-
take
it's
pieces
really
out,
nuts
put
now
new
what they
pieces
do,
in.
you know?
Anyways, thank you for asking.
Yeah.
So,
We'll have you in our thoughts tomorrow.
yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. But believe me, this is a relief, as anyone will say. So good evening, Douglas Desane, representing the applicant. We're here on a continued public hearing on notice of intent. You'll recall when we were last here, I think we had a couple of outstanding issues relating to snow storage and also our proposed restoration area and knotweed mitigation plan. So we've come up with some things to propose to you tonight. I think we've done a good job of addressing it, but before we get into that, I want to talk to you about a bump in the road, no pun intended, that we ran into with the planning board, and that is the planning board has interpreted the parking regulations correctly to tell us that for a building of this type, you need one space per every 200 square feet of building. So believe it or not, we need 45 parking spaces for this building. We had originally proposed 20,
Half that.
35, because we only need 14 for the Sullivan tire.
right, so we had proposed 35. So what we had to do is we had to add some new spaces. However, we've been working with the building inspector and with the planning department, and we've filed a request for a special permit to essentially allow us to bank those extra spots. So what we do is we identify that we can build them, but they're not going to make us build them.
Okay, but you
unless
have to leave the
down the
area.
road,
You have to
right.
leave the area.
Right, down the road, if we run into a parking
You've got it.
thing, we've got it.
That's a nice
So,
compromise.
and, I think people have been very reasonable in understanding that, this kind of facility, you just, to think we need 8 spaces or 7, 6, 8 spaces per bay is excessive. So this banking is a good idea. So I want to show you where we added the extra spaces, or where we've proposed to put the extra spaces. They're all outside the.
You want the?
I have one. Oh,
you do?
if you have one,
Yeah, it's the
I won't
orange
dig
one in
mine
the
out.
That orange one in the middle.
Here we go. Okay, so what we've done is it shown on here, Danny? Is this the right plan?
This is the one that you submitted with the, this is not the one that was submitted this morning. This is the one that was submitted,
Last week?
Okay, oh, for the planting area and snow plow?
Oh, yeah.
And we did get something this morning, but it came this afternoon.
Yeah, no,
chance to review it
and I
yet.
apologize, that's why we're gonna present this to you. But what I will tell you is that we've put three spaces out here, okay? Instead of this being parallel, it would bump out in a little here. And correct me if I'm wrong, Danny, we're outside the 100 here?
We're outside the 50 there.
Outside the 50 here. We've got a couple more going over here, which are outside the 100. And we're proposing 5 here where those trailers are proposed. Or at least we're showing that we could put 5 spaces here. Again, all outside the 50-foot.
Do you have to have any signage or anything?
What's that?
Do you have to have any signage or anything?
But he doesn't have to do any, he doesn't have
No,
to
in
build
fact,
it, he just
I
has to
understand.
show it.
This will be grass.
So, okay, so it's on
And this
paper.
gravel area here, just not gonna change.
So
Understood.
if you need to build, so will those parking spaces be shown on a plan of record? or-
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, we just submitted it to you
Okay.
Okay.
today, along with the
I understand.
Okay,
planning
so-
board, because we had to file for the special permit to waive. We've kind of been working with planning and Henry to make sure that we satisfy the parking, but at the same time, they've been very helpful in saying, you know, we don't want a bunch of pavement here that we're not gonna need. We've done this on big projects. I mean, if you'll remember Cornerstone, the giant thing, we actually banked like 100 spaces, you know, in what was gonna be a parking garage. So if someone ever did say that there's just too much traffic there, they can actually make them build the parking
I
garage.
hear that now, but nobody's building it.
Yeah, I mean, again, I won't get
I mean,
into whether
that's
the
a
traffic
pretty
is that-
jammed up
but-
parking lot.
But for us,
Yeah, I
you know,
get
the
it.
spaces
Okay.
won't even exist. So, I just wanted to let you know that. But again, we made sure that all of these parking spaces that are gonna be banked were outside the 50 and in some cases outside the 100, so. Because I remember we talked before, you guys didn't want any spaces within the 50 anywhere, so.
So you have some down in the
Two
store
here.
corner there.
3 up here, Eric. And again, I'm sorry, I'll get you the plan. Obviously, you guys are gonna wanna look
I
at
got
it
this,
for
the
the
new
next
plan,
meeting.
at least the one from today. I don't know if that's the
And
latest.
then the other 5 will be right here where
So that's where the
those
current
trailers are.
currently are.
Yeah, so, in reality, the trailers aren't going anywhere unless Henry tells us on the road, hey, you need those 5 spaces put in.
Okay.
And then we'll, apply to do it. So I just want to let you know what change we made to the plan for that, and we did just submit them, so I know you haven't had a chance to look at them. Now, let's talk about snow storage. And Danny, I guess maybe you would be better first to do that, because you can identify the snow storage area, the size of the snow storage area, and the planned plowing scheme, so that we get all the snow off the inner portion of the site and all out to the front.
Yep. So, yeah, we've relocated all the snow storage areas to be greater than 100 feet from the wetland. So, the snow storage area is gonna be in this front area around the Sullivan Tire sign and around the side of the parking area here. And so there's over 4,000 square feet of area in there that we can dedicate to snow storage. So we've got no snow storage in the back there, so, our thoughts are the snow can be piled on the pavement, or pushed into a pile, I should say, on the pavement, and then transported to the front of the site, to that snow storage area. And so that's, the 100-foot buffer is approximately like here. And so we're showing it all outside the buffer in the front yard here.
And my client also recently sent me a photo of, do you ever see a box plow? It's a big box, a big plow, and it's got these 2 wings on it, so that they could actually, if they wanted, rather than piling it and moving it, they could actually box plow it from the back all the way to the front, and we'll have no concern of snow going over the bridge or over the curbing. Because one of the questions was, how are we gonna prevent snow, even if it's being plowed and moved out? How do we prevent it from just, naturally falling as you're going along the edge? And that's how we're gonna do it. We'll have a contractor where we'll define that they'll either move it away from the curbs and then move it to the front, or if they could employ the box truck, they would be allowed to push it all the way without fear of it getting, off the sides.
So during the winter, which is when there's most likely the need to plow, so are renters of the bays going to be able to store vehicles and trailers or whatever in those parking spaces, which would complicate the plowing?
Well, they're also, you know, we've also designated there's 2 parking spots in each bay, so it will depend. I mean, we expect what happens here is the contractor keeps his big plumbing truck or his other truck in the bay, but then they drive, you know, they drive their vehicle from home to here, park it in the parking lot, and take their truck.
Okay.
So, but yes, Mark, I mean, there is a possibility that there could be a car or a vehicle parked outside in the night in the winter, which, while it will complicate the plowing, I mean, it's what a lot of businesses face. You know, you're just gonna have, the tenants are gonna be under a contract that says, when there's snow, you're gonna have to move your vehicles. Or we'll come in and plow the center, you pull your vehicles out, and then we'll clean up around. I mean, it's, you know, it's even the way things happen with Sullivan Tire now. You know, they could have clients' cars in the parking lot, and if it snows, you just got to deal with it the next day, so. But we really think that is a solid way of being able to commit to the commission that, we can get all the snow out of the 100 completely. And also, I've seen this in other orders of conditions where we would be required to provide you a copy of our snowplow contract, so that you can see that the contract defines, defines how they do it, where they put it.
That's a good idea.
That's the best assurance we can give you.
Yeah, because one of the things, it's not on this copy of the plan, but on one of the other sheets, the area where that lower snow storage was, that's also labeled as priority habitat for rare species. So the fact that you're not
Right.
storing snow there is even better.
Yep. Yep, no, you guys asked us to get it completely out of the 100, and
Feels good.
this guy
Yeah,
was able
thank
to
you.
get it done, so I can take no credit. So we feel good about that. The other issue, and I'll let Mr. Crossman jump in the fray, was related to our proposed restoration in this area, right? And what we had proposed was a mixture of trees, including some pines, and we heard you guys that, pines aren't the best thing anymore because they get big and then they're a problem. So Dave, again, I don't mean to speak for you, but I think we've now changed the variety of trees. I don't know if we changed the variety of shrubs and stuff, but we definitely got rid of the pines and added in, native species that won't grow to 70 or 80 feet. And then we had proposed going in 3 times a year and hand cutting the knotweed as a mechanism to control it. And I know Sarah was kind enough to pass on some questions relating to where did that plan come from? Is that a DEP sort of proposed mitigation plan or way of mitigating knotweed, or?
Just some of it is thinking about how aggressively knotweed spreads. Is that, is that sufficient dealing with it to really keep it, to keep it in check or to reduce the infestation?
Well, I will tell you, I mean, I guess Dave will have an opinion on that, and I'll let him speak. I've said enough. But I do know that, technically speaking, as I understand it, to truly eradicate knotweed, you would probably have to excavate down 5 or 6 feet to get those roots
Use
out.
an herbicide.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, and we don't
that's
know,
never
but-
even
but
on the
yeah.
that's not even on the list. So,
Right.
So what we've seen and what we've done on other projects that I've seen that DEP's approved is, in some cases, as we were currently doing across the way here, the area was grassed and then it was cut regularly so that the knotweed could never come up. And if you guys remember from the site visit, that little corner there, I mean, although it is a grassed, vegetated area, there's no sign of knotweed, so it's working. But we had talked about the fact that that was probably a little too aggressive for this area over here, you know, to go in here and mow it, you know, to the ground around the trees and shrubs all the time. And that's where Dave went back and came up with this proposal to just go in and hand cut to the ground 3 times a year during the growing season, right, Dave? Dave, why don't I let you explain, you know, sort of the basis for that proposed knotweed mitigation plan and why it's done, you know, 3 times during a certain portion of the growing season.
So I did some research, because you didn't want them all.
Actually, can you come to the mic? 'Cause
Yeah, or did.
I'd like, yeah, I think it's very good with the information you're being provided to be captured in the recording for people to be able to hear it online.
So I did some research on invasive management, and there's a company called Techline who puts together invasive plant news. And basically, they gather research from all over and put together the latest techniques and what have you, and what the findings are for the best way to do various kinds of invasive management. So they have a list of management for knotweed, of which mowing was one, herbicide, and they list specific herbicides for that. And they also do mechanical or manual stem cutting for small areas such as this, not large areas. But their recommendation is cut it, repeat it at least 3 times during the growing season and continue this for more than 3 years for successful control. So their research finds that that is good for small areas like this where you don't have to spend a lot of time. And it is contained within that area. Once you reach where the old septic system is, that becomes a little white pine stand. And there's really not, all of a sudden the knotweed just stops right in there, and it goes from the white pine into the wetlands that are in that back corner.
Okay. Yeah, and it's helpful to understand the body of research that's behind the proposal.
Yeah, we can send that, we'll send that to you. I mean, what have you guys experienced in other projects as far as knotweed mitigation? Are people truly committing to digging it up 6 feet down and you know,
But now,
or are people cutting, are they mowing, or is it a combination?
I
Are we setting the stage here
I
for
think
future knotweed?
you know, I think,
Nobody's excavating.
no, they're.
Not yet.
Not yet, but I think, yes.
As they say, it could have to go down even 10 feet at times.
Yeah, but this is where we're getting the information from you. You become,
model.
a model.
Body of evidence that we're
Yes.
gonna use to decide on how we're gonna go forth in the
And-
future.
Yeah, if
We
it
get to
works,
see what's
we'll use it for
effective,
other people. We'll,
what
you know,
you're
use it as a
doing
reference.
maybe gets replicated to other places, and it just, you know, we're kind of gathering information and, you know.
So I have worked with this type of invasive management before in other local towns in the area, Carlisle and Concord specifically. And for the larger areas, they do allow us to mow it a couple times a year, not to keep it like a lawn, but just to knock it back. And Carlisle in particular, they do allow us to use the herbicide, but we have to have a licensed professional come in and get all that stuff approved.
So that whole area bordered in red is knotweed?
Yes.
Okay. Eric, you had, I think at the last meeting, you had,
Yeah.
yeah. Eric, you had talked about, you know, being concerned mowing.
Well, it seemed like it was more of a resource, it seemed like it was wet when we had gone out there, and it seemed to be more of a resource area than an area that should be managed, but, you know, it seemed like perhaps that wasn't the case, that, you know, while it is in the, you know, it's clearly buffer, it wasn't wetland, that was my concern.
Okay. So, yeah, because I'm thinking in that larger area that looks like it's about 50 feet wide from the edge of the wetland up. you know, a lot of times we will ask for a vegetated buffer along the wetland, you know, a no disturb area, but then beyond that, mowing, if that becomes effective, you know, that's potentially something the commission would approve, so that you're only having to deal with 3 times a year cutting in that narrower buffer along the edge of the wetland, rather than having to try and manage that entire area with mowing 3 times a year. Does that make sense?
Dave, why don't you give them a little more insight too in the new planting plans, so that you get an understanding of what trees and bushes are gonna be in this area that you'll technically have to now work around.
Well,
right?
but would those, okay, yeah,
Well, the trees are clearly listed on the plan that we
Yeah.
got, so that's, you know, that's easy enough to understand. It's just, you know, you'll be mowing and maintaining around those trees.
yeah.
We check it once a year and see, so we have some sort of
But
record
also
that it's
is,
working, or?
was your thought to have the plantings scattered in that area or in just specific segments?
Well, it was more to scatter them throughout the area, because it is a wooded area where there is no knotweed. We're trying to create a similar wooded
Okay.
area. The area that's,
Orange button. Oh,
wrong orange button, red button.
Green button?
Okay. Anyways,
Professional.
Oh, there it is. Okay, it should come back on soon. So the
Yeah, it's-
orange one's like down in the middle on the remote.
so anyways, the area that's on the other side of the road that we did for the replication area, and, yeah. I don't know if I can get,
That doesn't go on the screen. I don't think it shows up.
No, not on the TV.
Yeah.
okay.
anyways, that area was mowed repeatedly, which is why there's no knotweed in that area now. But that was also during the appeal process with DEP, so we kind of get away from the 50-foot or 25-foot notice.
You're gonna have to speak up a little bit. People can't hear. I can't hear you, so people on the mic may not be able to hear you.
So I guess the bottom line is we're happy to essentially address this mitigation in whatever manner that commission feels is gonna be most effective and with least impact on the wetland. I, just from a personal perspective, where we've now gotten to this proposal, where we're gonna create a new wooded area by spreading the trees and shrubs around, I mean, that kind of doesn't really lend itself to mowing, right? I mean, it'd be kind of mowing around. Plus, we got the impression people didn't want us mowing. So that's why we've come in with this idea of going in and hand cutting around the trees.
Just have to check it
3
out
times
once a year, twice a year.
I'm fine with the hand picking and stuff, you know.
No, I am
and-
too.
With the hand cutting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Periodically, we can see if it's working.
I thought it beeped, so it would come back.
Yeah, and
Oh,
certainly,
there it is.
yeah, certainly whatever part of the plan, you know, you guys wanted, you know, we could have a spring inspection, you know, see what it looks like before we cut the first time, or maybe right after the first hand cutting. And, you know, if down the road, there's a better option, we can always change. Well, we just wanna make sure that we can propose something right now that you're comfortable.
Yeah,
I'm
and,
comfortable with what you're saying,
yeah,
so.
Oh, just for your own information, that wetland between the edge of this mitigation and the gravel,
yeah.
that's entirely Phragmites. So it's a lot of mitigation that should be going on there, but that whole area is all invasive. There's some overflow rows in there too, but the 2 primary species are the knotweed in the upland and the Phragmites in the wetland,
Wetland.
which it is creeping up steeply on the slope.
So if we make notes on what it looks like now, and we revisit it 6 months or a year, see it again, we know whether or not this is working. Sounds like it's a solution.
Like you said, we had Dave research and apply his experience in other towns. Again, some other towns are more agreeable with herbicides or AR&D. We're not proposing that. That's not something we've seen you guys do, so we're not proposing that.
Okay.
So if you're comfortable with that, and you're comfortable with the plowing plan, obviously you do need an opportunity to look at that parking plan that we just submitted that shows those 10 banked spaces so that you're comfortable that they're outside of the 50 and that, again, we're not gonna build them unless all of that works. With that, I guess our question is, what other questions might you have, or what other information can we provide you, or could we
I don't have
possibly
anything
look
else.
towards a draft order next time we see you?
One question that I did have, and I haven't really seen it directly answered, is whether people who rent the bays, landscapers, potentially paving companies, if they're going to be able to store trailers and such in their exterior parking spaces overnight. The concern being fuels, oils, herbicides, pesticides, other hazardous products that might be on a vehicle. And that just in the buffer, it creates the chance that if any of those products escape the container, yes, it gets into the stormwater management system, but I mean, that's
Affects the.
but that's the kind of thing that from other sites, that's a question that gets raised to me because we've seen problems elsewhere.
Sure, and again, we appreciate the fact that we had some insight into that question, and we've done a couple of things. One, we have proposed, because the planning board has some questions too, right? We get this approved for a general services establishment, and then, years down the road, somebody decides, hey, light manufacturing is allowed here. We'll just buy the whole building and do light manufacturing. In order to protect against that, we've actually volunteered to the planning board that they could put a condition on us that if there was ever a change in use, even if it's a change to another allowed use, we will have to go back in for site plan. So they're gonna make that a condition of approval, and just because nobody wants to deal with it, we're also gonna allow them to put a condition that says there will be no asphalt,
Paving businesses.
paving, installers, storers
Okay.
allowed. And again, that's another condition we've proposed to the planning board. And that not only answers some of your question on paving companies, but some of the planning board was asking us, well, they're concerned about, this is all good, you guys have done this plan, it seems like you've addressed everything. What happens if down the road somebody wants to do something else? And we've addressed that too. Now, with your question on the storage, there could be a possibility that someone could store a trailer or a small box trailer or an open equipment trailer in the parking spots.
Well, and it just, well, and I guess one of the things,
The only business really that I can think of that may have products that you're concerned about would probably be a landscaper, right? So we know they use gas, we know they use some chemicals when they do
herbicides,
lawns and
whatever,
stuff, right?
fertilizers.
So, just like the sprinkler engineer said, when these bays are built, that no one can build racks inside the building more than 12 foot high. If you go higher than that, it affects the activation and how well the sprinkler system works. So that could be part of the lease, right? You're gonna rent this place, you can't put racks higher than 12 feet. So the landscapers, for instance, could have the same wording, similar wording in their lease, where no gas cans are to be left at this spot. If you do have chemicals you're using on lawns, they'll be left inside the building, not outside the building. And that way there's protection.
So if they've got fuel cans that they have on their trailers when they go out to a
Correct.
job,
Correct.
overnight, they would take those those cans, store them in their bay as opposed to out on the trailer.
And that can be a restriction. No herbicides, hazardous materials, or gasoline can be stored in containers in an outside vehicle. I mean, obviously you can have a
Yeah, and-
gas
and
tank in the truck. but-
Those trucks and/or trailers can just simply be, at the end of the day, parked in.
Yeah, and that's, you know, and it, some of it is, I think, also, from my perspective, based on Bridge Street, is, you know, is part of the lease that the person would sign is that
Those conditions.
yeah, those conditions, and they acknowledge and accept them.
Correct.
Then that mitigates the risk
Yep.
for us.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have all sorts of limitations on their parking, storage of chemicals. We can do anything because these will be rented.
We should get a copy of
Yeah,
I don't think we'd be ready for an order of conditions at our next meeting. I think there are too many
we haven't
conditions
had,
that we need, and we still need to review this, so I don't think it's, I don't think it's plausible for us to get finished what we need to get finished and have an order of conditions ready to be executed at our next meeting. I
Well-
still think we have a little more discussion about what we want to see in those orders before we finalize those orders.
and I think we'd also want to make sure that you're really at the, very close to the endpoint with the planning board, so that anything that's come up with your back and forth with them, if it triggers something that we would want in our orders, we have the opportunity to put it in. You know, not anticipating anything, but normally we don't, we kind
Well,
of,
I understand that. We do
Yeah.
that all the time. We wanna make sure we
Yeah.
run them this way so that we don't get approval from you guys and the planning board changes something, you gotta come back. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that, but I guess, Eric, I wanna just understand a little better, you know, if you're telling me you guys just need time to
It's
figure it out.
7:30. I haven't had a chance to review this. We're still chatting about this. We really haven't had that much of a chance to discuss the orders. There are specific orders I'd like to see in it. I think we need to move on to our next agenda item, continue this discussion, and then work on those order conditions, maybe of what we wanted at our next public hearing. But I don't think we're in a position to be able to finalize and issue orders at our next meeting.
All right,
So
all right,
continue-
I respect that, but I just,
No, and
I just
and
have a
that's what I'm
question.
saying.
I just have a question for you. If what you're saying is you want time to think through this and come up with some conditions and other things, I appreciate that. What I don't hope doesn't happen is we come back at the next meeting and somebody says, you know what, we've decided maybe that parking should go over here, or that, you know, we wanna shift
This
this
parking is
building.
not gonna be built. But I
No,
hear,
no, I
yeah,
understand.
and I know
Are
what
you
you're
gonna
saying,
find
yeah,
new
that somebody,
questions?
there'll be another iteration. I'm not seeing that, but we haven't had a chance, but
That's
I
fine.
know why you presented this, it's not actually gonna get built. I don't see, I mean, if somebody was gonna say, well, you wanna put parking over here where you currently have snow storage, I guess somebody could have raised that issue. You know, I just think we need a little more discussion at our next meeting and make sure we fully flesh out the orders before, you know, we issue orders that all, you know.
so
I'm
the,
great with that, guys. I just don't want in 2 weeks
I don't
a
see that.
surprise that we now have to redesign.
I don't think
I
you'll-
don't see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I don't think you'll have
Okay,
any
that's all I'm
surprises.
asking.
Okay.
I can appreciate you on time, and I'm not suggesting we won't give it to you. I just, you know, we just wanna make sure that we're not gonna come back to a set
This
of
is
whole new questions.
that you,
like-
yes,
Yeah, no, I don't think that's
All
the,
right, all right.
okay.
Then thanks. We respect your position, Eric, you know that.
So are there any comments or questions on this project from members of the audience? Okay, continuation until July 24th?
Your next meeting, sure?
Okay, can I have a motion to continue the public hearing to July 24th?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
All right, guys, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good luck.
We'll see you
Good luck
later.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Really,
Good luck
Yeah.
tomorrow.
And
man.
in fact, I think in 2 weeks I'll be able to get here.
Running here, right?
That's what I'm told.
Doug, truly best.
so
Thanks, Ben.
moving on to our 7:10 PM agenda item, it's a public
That's when you have a split
hearing.
screen and you can
Any
have some
paperwork.
sort of-
No, no,
He's gonna read it
No,
off the.
no, but like, I only got this. I didn't even get any of the packets.
Oh,
Like,
I'm gonna see
Yeah.
you tomorrow when I get all these
Yeah.
things to
Yeah.
compare.
I know, she didn't pass, usually
so Matt usually,
passes out the
Passes out
packets,
the
because we
packets,
read them
people don't.
online, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I don't pick mine up.
I know,
Yeah,
neither do
okay.
I.
Okay.
so,
It's not in the packet
All right.
anyway, so.
Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, Chapter 171,
The Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, July 10th, 2024 at 7:10 PM in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall, 55 Main Street, to consider the request for determination of applicability application for Gordon Cartier for the abandonment of an existing septic tank and leaching area and installation of a tight tank with 100 feet of Kai's Pond bank and bordering land subject to flooding at 35 Kai's Road.
Good evening. Representing the applicant, Jeff Hannaford. As noted, this is 35 Keys Road. The property is directly across from Keys Pond. The septic system was recently found to be in failure in preparation of a Title V inspection for the sale of the house. Some additional investigation was done, and it was found to be in failure. So when we looked at the possibility of upgrading, you note on the plan that this is an area where the dwellings are supplied by private wells, not municipal water. So the well for this house, as you can see on the plan, is directly off the corner there of that patio, almost in the middle of the lot. And then to the right of that, just over the lot line, is the abutter's well. Because of those, it wasn't possible to meet a minimum 50-foot offset for a leaching area. So when you're in a situation like that, the only alternative is a tight tank. So what we've got here is we're proposing a tight tank, as you can see on the plan, and it's in the area, a portion of the existing leaching area, just beyond the edge of the existing septic tank. So the existing tank will be pumped and crushed, and any part of it that happens to be in the footprint of the new one will be removed. Any part of the leaching area that's in the footprint of the new one will be removed, and the new tight tank installed. The closest point of the tight tank is a little further from the pond than the current leach field, but the reason the leaching system, the existing system, failed is because it was found that it was in the groundwater table. So this is clearly besides the only reasonable option, it's clearly a much better situation going forward than leaching directly into the water table.
So I hear how this works, and that's great. And I'm just going to ask this question, and this is fine. There wasn't any thought of doing like a pump up and putting it, up here somewhere, because we see so many where, they do a pump up and they can get a full septic, but I'm thinking maybe this is rather ledgy and you didn't have, overburden.
Actually, I don't know, it's probably not evident on the 11x17s. I tried to show what's going on there. If you see the topography.
Yep. Oh, it's steep, it goes, I know the hill, and that's what I'm saying. Maybe you didn't have but sometimes I see it because you'll see that, but, there may be 20 feet of sand, not here. But sometimes even with that type of topography and steep slope, you can still engineer, because we see it, a leaching field. So I was curious, and just why you didn't do a pump up? Because now this individual is gonna be stuck with a tight tank.
Believe me.
I know, I know, and that's why I'm asking the question, I'm curious.
We provided a portion of the topography to give you an idea of what's going on. It continues all the way up
to the,
Oh, it's
Spalding
probably
Hill,
a 30 to 40 foot difference in elevation. It's very steep. There's just no physical way to get up in there, remove the trees, stabilize the area, build retaining walls. It would be
Nightmare.
Yeah.
No, it'd be an engineering feat. Nothing
For
can't be
triple the
engineered.
money,
Yeah, I'm just
and
saying.
that would
you
buy a
know,
lot of
I know,
pump-outs.
but I was curious,
Oh,
because I rarely do I ever see anybody do a tight tank, even when we're on the water and even when we're in 100 feet of a well, and it's usually maximum feasible compliance. Here, where you got somebody who had a septic and we're going to a tight tank. So I was curious why. You indicated the 50-foot offset, which is clearly understandable, and I like that. I just, given the property, I just didn't understand why a pump up wasn't an option.
Sure.
Jim?
Based on the design criteria you used in picking the components, this thing's gonna be alarming, like on the order of every week.
It depends on the use.
Well, by using the design criteria, you have certain gallons per
Right.
day production and a certain size tank with a certain level where the alarm goes off, and you have a reserve capacity in the tank. Is this the biggest tank? If you have to go with a tight tank, I would do everything you possibly could not to. But if you have to, you'd want the biggest one possible.
Yep.
Literally, by following the design criteria, this is every 7+ days, 7 days.
There's gonna be a guy there
Well-
pumping it out.
The alarm's gonna go off every 7 days, if 7, 8 days.
Yeah, that's actually not gonna happen because it doesn't work that way. The calculations, the numbers we use in our calculations are estimated daily flow under Title V.
Those are the numbers I use, the ones you have right in the. plan.
Correct. Those numbers aren't based on actual flows. Kind of they are, but what the number really means is, they took into account what they think the actual flow might be, but they had to bump it up because the way a system functions is peak flows versus trough flows on a 24-hour period. It is gallons per day, so we are talking about a 24-hour duration. So during the middle of the night, you have zero flow. Then you have a peak in the morning when people get up, take showers. Then it starts to drop off again. In the evening, when people are doing dishes, maybe they're doing laundry, there's another peak, and then the trough through the night. So the estimated daily flow takes into account those peak flows because we're talking about a 24-hour duration. When you're doing the hydraulic calculations for flow in the pipes, because we're down to a 4-inch pipe, you have to account for flow based on peak times through that 4-inch pipe. If the flow, 110 gallons a day per bedroom, if that 110 were constant for 24 hours, then the pipe sizing could actually be smaller. But for the peak flows, you have to have a system designed for that time period. So with that, when we do look at, when we're lucky enough to have dwellings that are on municipal water, and we have readily available water meter readings, what we typically find in actual water use is half of the estimated daily flows that we use to design.
So that would mean every 2 weeks the
It
alarm's
could
going
be
off.
every 2 weeks, but then
Is
you've
this
got.
a full-time year-round building?
It is.
Right, but,
Not gonna be happy with that.
right, now.
That's up to the
you've got
buyer.
I know.
people
The
that-
alternative may be worse.
What we don't want is for them to just ignore the alarms and wait until it becomes the emergency. In other words, it's
No, I'm
They're
thinking
not
that's
gonna
not
do
gonna
that.
happen.
That's-
you
They're
know.
not gonna do that.
No, there is a deed notice that gets filed with this so that it's on record for anybody that wants to look. But what we find is people that know they have that situation are much more water conscious than the typical person. They may opt to say it's not worth doing laundry at home. Or they may opt to say, you know what, these fixtures are so much older, we can do a lot better by upgrading the fixtures to low-flow faucets, low-flow toilets. So there are different ways people can make that
More
two-week
palatable
period extend out to
to
something.
2.5.
Yeah, this is.
They're making your choice to live
Yeah,
there.
You know, when you have private wells in small lots around ponds and lakes, I've probably done 2 or 3 of these over in the long sought-for area. Because of that situation, you can't get away from the wells. I've got one right now in Pepperell, same thing. It's certainly not what we want, and the way Title V writes up their tight tank regulations, we have to look at every alternative first. IA systems, whatever we could do, even a shared system, which we actually did one over in the long sought-for area, where 2 neighbors got together. One neighbor happened to have more room than the other, and they worked out a deal to share a leach field to get away from the wells. So you have to look at everything, and this is just, when you're backed into the corner, this is the alternative.
Did you have a question, Noel?
Well, it was similar. I was just gonna ask how often they're gonna pump.
Okay.
So I'm guessing it'll be every month or so, right?
I would hope that
Fingers
they'd be
crossed,
able
that's what
to,
they're hoping.
yeah, work it out to something that, in that order, yeah.
Okay.
You already have any comments or questions?
I do not, no. Matt and I drove by the property and we saw kind of what you're talking about with the topography, and this location seemed to make sense to us when we looked.
Are there any comments or questions from members of the audience? So this would be maximum feasible compliance, a conditional negative determination?
With the condition being like erosion controls, or?
Yeah, this would be a conditional negative determination.
So,
Not a
yeah,
positive finding, we're not gonna have a notice of intent.
yeah. So, but sometimes we do sometimes it's an unconditional negative
No, this is the.
So this is
This
conditional?
would be a conditional negative determination.
with erosion control for when they're,
Pretty much standard one.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, so when they're now with the
When they're
existing.
digging, they'll put up the erosion, some silt fence around the front to make sure it doesn't wash across the street, that type of stuff.
Okay, now with the existing leach field, is that just going to be filled in place? Is stuff gonna be removed from it?
The portion that would have to be removed is whatever's within the area of the new
Okay.
tight tank. The rest of it can just go dormant.
Okay,
There's no filling of it.
okay.
Just a nice, easy, conditional negative determination.
So, can I have a motion for conditional negative determination?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So, and Sierra will be in touch with the paperwork?
Yes.
Okay. You know the drill. So moving on to our 7:15 PM agenda item, it's a public hearing for Hike Camp, 15 Patton Road.
Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, Chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, July 10th, 2024, at 7:15 PM in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall, 55 Main Street, to consider the request for determination of applicability application for Frank Heidkamp for the abandonment of a septic tank, leach field, and installation of a new leach field within 100 feet of bordering vegetative wetlands and 200 feet of Boutwell Brook at 15 Patton Road.
Good evening. For the record, Jeff Hannaford, representing the applicant at 15 Patton Road. This is a septic repair to a failed system. It's not for the sale of the house. It's a failed system where the leach field hydraulically failed and was breaking out onto the surface of the ground. This system, the house was built in 1970. The system that's there now in failure was built in 2000. Consists of an existing septic tank, an existing pump chamber that was installed in 2000, and a conventional leach field. The water table found back in 2000 was relatively high enough that required a system in fill, or a mounded system, if you will. And this site is served by a private well, and there is wetlands to the rear of the lot, as you can see. The system is within the buffer zone. It's greater than 50 feet from the wetlands, but because of the well arc, there is no area outside the buffer zone to site the system. What we are proposing to do is to remove the existing conventional leach field and replace it with an innovative alternative type leach field, Presby Enviroseptic. We'll utilize the existing tank and pump chamber to minimize disruption. Fortunately, because the system in 2000 was a mounded one, we don't have to create a new mound. We can retain the soil around the leach field, so we're only talking about removal of the leach field itself and anything within 5 feet of that. This proposed leach field is slightly further from the wetlands, as it's a slightly smaller footprint than the existing leach field. Erosion control will be put in to protect the wetlands and buffer zone during construction. But it's about the best we could do. Because of the IA system, we can take a 2-foot reduction to the water table, so that'll preclude any additional filling or increasing the mound that's already there. So that's what we've got proposed for this site.
No.
Am I reading this right? It's 62 feet from the wetland flags?
Pardon me?
62 feet away? Okay.
Yep.
I find his maximum feasible compliance, he's over 50. He's in the same location, his leaching field is in the same location as his previous leaching field, except now he's gonna do the Presby, so he's got, doesn't need 4-foot groundwater separation, he only needs 2. That about sum it up?
Yeah, you did, because moving this would require building another
I get
mound
it, yeah.
somewhere, so.
That's fine.
Any comments or questions from members of the audience? Can I have a motion for a conditional negative determination?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
So moving on to our 7:20 PM agenda item, we have a public hearing for Gross, 50 Lawson Road.
Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, Chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, July 10th, 2024, at 7:20 PM in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall, 55 Main Street, to consider the request for determination of applicability application of Michael Gross for the construction of a sunroom addition within 100 feet of Navnasset Lake and bordering land subject to flooding at 50 Lawson Road.
Hey, good evening. Matthew Stengel with Land Tech Consultants. I'm here with the applicant, Michael Gross. So the proposed project is at 50 Lawson Road, which is on the north shoreline of Lake Navnasset. The lot is approximately 12,700 square feet. The lot currently contains a single-family dwelling. There's a paved patio that extends to Lawson Road, and there's a deck and patio at the rear of the house, adjacent to Lake Navnasset. There's maintained lawn areas that surround the house. Resource areas that at the property include or wetland or Lake Navnasset, the 100-foot wetland buffer, or the wetland buffers from Lake Navnasset extend all the way into the Lawson Road right-of-way, so the entire property is within wetland buffers. The only other resource area is a portion of the Zone A floodplain is at the southeastern corner of the property, where along Lake Navnasset. As for the proposed project is limited to the construction of a 16-foot by 16-foot sunroom on the west side of the existing house. The sunroom is to be built on helical foundation piers instead of a poured concrete foundation, just to help minimize
Sonotube, right?
sonotubes. Yes,
There you
sorry.
go.
No foundation.
I was reading what was in our report, and that was a little more
fine. No, that's
technical,
fine.
sorry.
Yeah, no. So what's the ground like? Is it currently maintained?
lawn,
It's
yeah.
grass?
Yeah.
So, okay, 41 feet, we're on a maintained area. How many sonotubes?
I believe Scott said 3 is what it's gonna be. I believe that's what it is. It's 3 or 4 max, but, yeah, it's the sonotubes over the existing lawn. Sarah was there.
Yep.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, you too.
What's the distance from the water? Sorry.
He's 41 feet from his closest point.
Yeah, 40.
Which is a little bit farther than the existing,
Yeah.
which is 39 and a half. So you're no closer than the existing, yeah, not, yeah.
And his paver patio is right down to the lake.
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct. Natural stone.
Is the shed
When you
permitted?
have it,
There's a shed that's like 6
Yeah,
feet,
right
6
off.
feet from the lake. I'm concerned with what might
Sure.
be in there and whether it's
Does it
sealed
have
on
a
the
floor?
bottom.
Yep.
If it's fuel for boats or things like that, we don't want that stored
Does it have
there.
a floor?
It does have a floor. Yeah, it's a Reed's Ferry shed, and Sarah was kind enough to share that with me, so I'm Mike Gross.
Nice to meet you.
Do you want me to talk to it?
Yeah, go for
This is
it.
the first I met Matt, by the way. I've been working with Matt Waterman, so I really appreciate you filling in, so thank you. He's got a great haircut. So the shed, and I understand that's a concern. The house prior to, like, I bought in June 12th, 2012, when my wife and I purchased the property. There was an existing shed on the property. I have an old plot plan from 1990 that shows it. And the one thing of note, on the shed itself, it says 100 square feet, it's actually 96. I made sure when I did it, back in the day, the old rule was it had to be 100 square feet or less to not have a building permit, right? So I did an 8 by 12 for that specific reason. There it says 100, but it's not. That's just a typo, I think, by you guys.
I think it's just a measurement from the siding of the shed. It just, I think it probably measured 12.2 by 8.2.
Gotcha.
Multiplied 100 square feet.
But, yeah,
to
so
digress.
what I made sure I did was I put the shed, it's 20-something feet off the property line, right? Which I, again, in all good intent, I thought that was the right thing to do. As well as, I put it in between the existing trees. I know trees are important, right? I love trees. Now you want to touch that, so we never did. So it's surrounded by all the regular trees that are around the thing. And, yeah, so it is 6.2 feet from the lake. You guys are 100% right. But I think your question, Jim, is what's stored in it. I do have some gasoline, but what I do is I have 5-gallon, standard tank, and my little guy for my weed whacker. That's in a storage container in top, so I have a storage container, I put the cans in it, right? And it's a Reed's Ferry shed with a floor, and it's sitting on top of, it's not permanent, it's on,
Cinder block.
like cinder
Cinder
blocks,
block.
but they're small cinder blocks, but that's what it's on.
So it's,
In the GIS system, can we tell if this has been permitted or if it's if there was a shed in that spot
yeah, because even
Sounds
though
like
it
it's
may not
pre-existing.
require a building permit because it's being put in the buffer zone, that's where,
Yeah, we had someone just move their shed out of the 30-foot
Right.
on on Nabnasset Pond.
yeah, but the concern is,
What's that?
Do you live on the lake?
No, but I'm there a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look familiar.
yeah. Yeah, and that's generally, I understand about the side lot line because that's a requirement in our,
That's what I made sure of.
yeah, and our concern is with what's stored in the shed by you or a future homeowner, is the concern is about pesticides, and fuel oils and stuff like that.
Yep.
And because normally somebody wants to put a shed or a structure of any kind within the buffer zone, then they come to us yes, I don't,
I didn't.
you didn't see a record of
I
any?
didn't actually. I didn't have a chance to look into this.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I did
So I don't
not
have that
get a-
information.
I put the shed, that's on me, I did. I
Was
did that.
there a shed there before it?
There was a shed, on the property, not in that exact
Okay.
spot, but there was a shed, and, so, yeah.
Can we get oils, lubricants, and and chemicals out. Used for storage.
Well, and I guess,
Life jackets,
Fishing stuff.
well, that brings me to another question, is you have a seasonal dock? Okay. Because the entire site is within the buffer zone, I guess, do you have alternative locations for storing things like fuel oil, et cetera?
It would have to be in my house. I prefer not to do that, everybody. I mean, I don't think that's the right thing. Or if you gotta make me move the shed, I guess I'd move the shed. But I'm a pretty
The
responsible
shed wasn't
guy.
in
For
that,
the shed.
the shed wasn't in the location that it's currently in. There was a shed on the property.
On the property.
So
a little
where
bit
was
far-
the shed on the property?
Sure.
That way we have a better feel for where it is now and where it was.
Can I show you?
Sure.
Awesome.
Let's see first.
Better.
It helps. It helps, yeah.
here's-
No, appreciate it.
No problem. So this, again, it's pretty old. So
Yeah.
here's, so it's,
Yeah.
I think this is illegal too, because that's too close to the
Well,
property
no,
line.
for us, it's like, so he's way up here and now he's way down here. So we wouldn't have allowed it. So we would ask him probably to relocate his shed.
Outside the 30?
Yes.
Um,
Because he's too close right now.
That's the precedent we set already.
Yeah, always have.
okay.
So, but as far as what he wants to do,
that's fine.
that's fine.
Yeah,
Thank
the
you.
project's fine.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, the project is fine, yeah, it's, we might have you just hoist that shed or move that shed, but it's, what he wants to do is
What's the
fine.
floor of the shed?
Whatever.
Nothing to do with it, it's
That's not what
located.
I asked, I just wanted to know.
He
what
said
the
it was
floor
wood, he said it was a Reed's Ferry shed with a wood floor.
Okay, I missed that.
Solid shed, nice shed.
So the side lot line setback is 20 feet for this? Okay.
That would be a question
Okay.
for the building commissioner.
Yeah, I'm
So
just,
why don't we get an order of conditions ready for our next meeting, and we'll work something
it's an
in-
RDA.
Well, then, we're gonna have to work on a conditional negative, but somehow work it in that there's,
Can we come up with the wording that Sierra can use for the, because in terms of moving the shed back from the edge of the lake to the maximum feasible,
right
because
now, he
that,
looks like he's within 10 feet. And
Yeah.
you'd want him to be outside the 30.
30,
And that's what we ask everybody.
6.2 feet from the water.
so where's the okay, and I see where the 30
6.2,
is.
yeah, right now.
There's a couple of places at 30 feet. Some might be too close to the side boundary.
Yeah.
Some might be okay. But
Would it have to be on the driveway, which, so it would have to be up there or?
Right.
farther
Yeah,
on
it'd
the other
probably be
side?
like right here.
Or
If
the
you
other
just pulled it right back, it'd be sitting on the edge, because there's the 30-foot right there.
Yeah, so that's what I, could do. Again, my intent was not to touch trees, which I thought was the most important thing,
Yep.
and all in, good faith, right? So. it
And
was-
we appreciate
And by
it.
the way, it was like 10, 11 years ago. I don't remember much, I'm sorry. It's a long time ago.
So what we would want, we'd want the shed relocated outside the 30-foot? Okay. And then,
Can I ask a question?
sure.
Yeah.
Can I move forward with the project, though, or do I have to, or we have to move the shed first? I'm sorry,
Okay,
I interrupted.
So-
My bad.
moving the shed would be part of your project,
Okay,
right?
Doesn't have
Yeah.
to happen beforehand.
right.
okay. Gotcha. Seems fair.
Oh, we're not that bad.
Never said you were.
Any comments or questions from members of the audience? Okay, so I think you understand in terms of conditional negative for erosion control. Well, actually, there's erosion control on the plan, but yes, moving the
Repeat
shed
it in
is.
there if
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
if, to keep
Okay.
it more.
That's easy enough.
So can I have a motion for conditional negative determination?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Do you want to do that before you, or you're good with her just coming up with the language?
Yeah.
We don't need to read it, okay, fine.
That's usually what Matt
No,
does.
that's fine.
Yeah, the shed shall be relocated outside the 50-foot buffer.
Yeah, we.
I'll find some old language to
Close the
copy, make
public
sure
hearing,
it's
all those in
consistent.
favor?
30-foot buffer.
Oh, 30 foot, sorry, did I
Yes.
say? Yeah.
There's-
Sorry about that.
Closest point the shed should be to the water is 30 feet.
30 feet.
Yeah. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, you're all set, thank you
Thanks a
very
lot.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So, moving on to our 7:30 PM agenda item, it's a public hearing for Diamond, 64 Lake Shore Drive North.
You can sit, Bill.
You can sit, Bill.
I sit here?
Yep, okay. So, are we gonna open and continue, or just not open? Well, actually, should we open? That way we don't, because of the public notice.
Because of the filing, but do we have everything to open? Do we have all the green
We do.
cards and everything?
Yep, it was a complete application.
Okay,
It's just
so
that they
then
couldn't
open
make
it and
tonight.
then instantly continue to the next meeting.
So if you can give Noel the stuff to read?
Yeah.
Oh, right, because we have to open
Yeah.
it, of course, sure. Here it is, sorry about that.
Under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, Chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, July 10th, 2024, at 7:30 PM in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall, 55 Main Street, to consider the notice of intent application of Charles Diamond III for the abandonment of an existing septic tank and leaching area and installation of a new septic tank and leach field, construction of an addition and porch to a single-family dwelling, and removal of 4 trees within 100 feet of Nabnasset Lake bank and bordering land subject to flooding at 64 Lakeshore Drive North.
So,
Move to continue the,
yes, can I have
Yeah.
a motion to continue the
July
public hearing
24th.
without discussion to July 24th?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Moving on to our 7:40 PM agenda item, it's an appointment with Bill Harmon to discuss a potential trail easement. Good evening, Bill.
Good evening. That's me, Bill Harmon. I have some nice color prints of this from the print shop on Littleton Road. Would you like me to distribute these?
Please.
The agenda, your agenda says there would be a proposed easement, but actually, as I've analyzed the situation, I don't think that's necessary. The conditions right now are okay without an easement. So that just leaves a description of this trail. That's the only thing I'll do, if that's okay with you. I'll just describe this trail, where it is and what it's good for. I'll just get my own copy. And actually, could I use the laser pointer to?
Of course, yeah.
Orange button.
Oh, the orange one right there.
Well, it's very small, but. Anyway, you have one, do you all have one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Actually, Sierra, can you expand it?
It won't let me zoom in anymore.
It won't
I'm
let,
sorry.
okay. It's as big as it's gonna get.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see, Eric, you have one?
I do.
Okay, well, now.
And I have 2. Do you need one?
No?
I have an extra.
Would you want one, Sierra?
Yeah, I can take one. I just didn't want to, in case there weren't enough copies.
This trail is interesting because it goes from Pine Ridge Road to the Stone Arch Bridge. I've used it myself a number of times, over years, actually. And this picture, the Stone Arch Bridge is here, and this straight line here is the trail coming in from Cold Spring Road. Maybe you've taken that. This side of Stony Brook is town-owned conservation land with a nice trail going down one side and back the other. And actually Doug DeShane was responsible for getting that to be town-owned property. That was a really good deed that he did years ago, many years ago. The trail that I'm talking about is on the other side right here, and it goes over private property. It goes over 6 house lots. But it's nicely separated. The reason I'm suggesting it doesn't really need any easement right now anyway, because it seems to be open to the public. The people who own those house lots are not objecting to the public walking through there. Now, I've walked through there many times myself, but I've never seen another person. I know some other people are going through there, but I've never seen anyone else. So I guess that's probably why the people don't object to this. Not only that, but it's very steep. On the copies that you have, you can see, if you look closely, you can see the topographical contours. And can you tell that it's very steep near Stony Brook? But it's also very level up where those houses are. most of them have their driveways on that road there, Bayberry, is it? Now, I was just saying, this trail passes over 6 house lots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And, well, basically, that's my point. It's a nice trail. It's being well used. I think you've used it, Noel.
But it would require getting,
Clearing, yeah.
well, not only that, but you'd have to, get permission from the
Owners.
owners.
So Jim?
Jim?
Most of the time, Bill, when you've come to us with ideas for trails or formalizing informal trails, it's usually in an area where there aren't that many trails to begin with. Or it would connect several parcels of conservation land, conservation trust properties, open space areas, or 2 existing trails, all of that. This one really doesn't do that. There are quite a few trails in the area. I took a look at the Conservation Trust trail map, and there's a lot of trails right there that lead off of the Stone Arch Bridge Trail. And I looked at, what's it called, All Trails, the All Trails, the cell phone app.
Oh, yes.
And that also has those trails. It also includes this one, even though it's on private property. But
Yes, I've
what
noticed
kind of bothered me a little bit was the reasoning for putting a trail here. If you look at the second paragraph, the benefit in continuing the public access is that any possible construction could be observed and brought to the attention of the Conservation Commission.
Well, that's out of date. I wrote that some time ago, and tonight I'm just saying there's no need for any public easement, at least at this time.
So you don't want to do anything, then
Just tell
Yes.
us
just
about
tell us about the
Yeah,
trail.
I'm just
If it's
telling-
okay with the people, if they don't object to people
Well,
using their private property, that's up to them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And just making us aware that there's, I guess that's okay, but if you were asking us to try to secure those easements, that might
That's a
be,
different ballgame.
yeah, that
That
is a
would be
different
different,
world.
yes. I'm
All right.
not proposing
So
that
it's a
right
change-
now.
It's a change in your approach. I thought you were going to you were going for the easement, but you're not.
Well, I had that idea before, but as I've analyzed the situation, I think it's easier
It's
now
not
to just
necessary.
accept it the way it is right now.
We're not accepting anything.
We can't accept it, it's on somebody else's property.
Right, it's 6 private parcels.
We can only be aware of it, Bill.
Yeah.
That there's a trail
Better
that those
word.
currently people are using, that it seems like the homeowners are
Allowing it.
allowing it at the moment. But other than that, and making us aware of
That particular trail is not
it.
in here because it's on private property, and it probably
Yes.
should not be added to this.
Yes, I agree with that. Mhm.
Because we'll get in the same situation we were with the old house and barn rocks. Before those were bought by the town, it was shown up in the trail maps, and it got one of the property owners a little bit upset a couple of times. Okay, all right.
One question I have is one end of the trail connects in with the Stone Arch Bridge trails and stuff. The other end is by,
At Pine Ridge Road almost.
Ridge
Yeah,
Road.
that cockeyed railroad bridge.
Yeah. Is there room for public parking if people want to access the trail from there?
People do park there. There's a lot of fishing that goes on in that little
Okay,
area.
so it's not like this would necessarily, so there's already parking in the area to support people coming to use the trail?
There's enough space on the side of the road, like right in here. In this
Okay.
little corner. I see people fishing there all the time, and they
Okay.
park on
He's
that
hanging out
side.
there
of the-
too.
Yeah.
Okay, that was just, if you're encouraging people to come, do they have a safe place to
But I
park?
don't know if we can encourage people.
Right.
No, but-
We can't do anything about this
no,
other
and
than
I
just being
wasn't- I
notified
wasn't-
of its
Yeah,
existence.
I feel like
wasn't-
this is just an awareness.
We should not be
I wasn't
encouraging
meaning
people to
we,
use it.
us, but it was just, if the trail is passed by word of mouth or whatever it is.
Then it's
there's-
up to them to find a parking spot. It's not even for us to make sure
Okay.
that there is or isn't. It's just, this is an activity that's
Private
occurring.
property.
Okay,
Private property.
so it's
And
really got
for
nothing
us,
to do
it's
with
just
us.
an awareness.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
With no action.
I think that
I think
makes
those are
good
good
sense.
comments. Yeah, that's
Okay.
consistent with my understanding.
Okay,
Okay, so thanks.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I'm glad I'm aware of it.
yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any changes, I'm sure we'll hear about it.
So moving on to our 8:05 PM agenda item, a public hearing
See you,
for
Bill.
Gillette 30 Preservation Way.
Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, Chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, July 10th, 2024, at 8:05 PM in meeting room 201 at Town Hall, 55 Main Street, to consider the request for determination of applicability application of Richard B. Gillette Jr. for the installation of a septic system tank and force main within 100 feet of bordering vegetative wetlands at 30 Preservation Way.
I have a couple extra full-scale plans if you guys want them.
Couple extra what?
Nah, the small ones are good. It'd be hard to
See,
put that out on the
it is
table.
It is tiny print,
Yeah.
but it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to make sure.
No, it's,
And a lot of times, you know, having it up on the screen where people can use the laser pointers is very effective. Helps for the discussion. Okay,
To get in the paper.
yeah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Matt Morrow. I am one of two employees of a firm called Morrow Environmental Consulting. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Rick Gillette, for a request for determination for the replacement of a septic system. So I know that you guys have had some history with this property with respect to some restoration work that they completed on the property. The Gillettes are actually in the process of selling the property. So right now the house is vacant. I guess they moved up to New Hampshire.
wasn't this just listed?
Yeah, it was just listed.
Just listed, yeah.
So they basically got out of Dodge so they wouldn't have to be around and cross people while they were trying to show the house. So I'll try to make this as concise as possible here, because it looked like you guys have a busy agenda. So essentially, what we have is we have the leach field, which is actually outside the 100-foot buffer zone. So what we have is the tank and the force main that are within the buffer zone. It is not, the 50-foot buffer zone is here. We're looking to do erosion protection basically right here. That would be in the form, the detail is right here. It would be in the form of staked-in wattles that would be a minimum of 8 inches in size. So they'd be 8-inch. If you want another material, we usually write in straw, but if you want another material, we'd be happy to accommodate. Usually we stake them in a minimum 2 feet deep, about a foot apart with the stakes. Usually won't do anything less than 8 inches. We don't do 6-inch wattles. To me, they're useless. So minimum size we always use is 8 inches. It's a fairly straightforward project. Usually a project like this takes between 1 to 2 weeks, depending on the weather. That's really it. The wetland was a bordering vegetative wetland system, which was, I really hate to use this term, but it's the only one I can think of right now. It was very cut and dry. There was a pretty obvious wetland area here. So that's basically it. I'm open to any questions that you have.
When was the house constructed?
That I do not know.
Okay. Any ideas, guys? I mean, he's got it must have been before our,
Preservation Way, it's got to go back 25, 30 years.
yeah, I was gonna say, because his existing, tank is in the, you know, between 50 and 60 feet to the resource area.
If I could just approach really quick.
Yeah,
So, I know it's sometimes it's hard to read on the screens too, so. And I seem to be like my cat, I want to chase the red dot.
oh, come on, be the,
But
cats
just
love
to
red
address
dots.
the
Yeah,
concern we
yeah.
have on the existing system, which you see.
Yeah, so I see
Here's
this,
the
this is the
existing tank
existing,
here.
right.
This is in the existing leach field here,
Okay.
so we're moving the leach field
Okay.
farther away from,
Yep.
even though it was still out of the buffer zone, we're moving it even
No, I
farther.
was just curious on when it was built because of where the existing was, and I'm like, typically that was before us. So she answered the question, probably 25, 30-year-old building.
Because I remember Russ Leonard used to live in the subdivision. I don't know when this specific house
Okay.
was, but that's the vintage when Preservation Way was, so that was,
But yeah, what this guy's showing from what the original was, he's fine.
I just wanted to, I figured that'd be a
Yeah,
little
no.
bit easier to read.
any other questions? Sarah, any questions?
It's built in 1987.
Huh?
It's built in 1987.
Okay. So, 35.
Yeah, that's,
Any comments or questions from members of the
Fine.
audience? Oh, okay.
Conditional negative determination.
Yep. Well, if he's got the erosion controls shown on the plan, are there any other conditions we would want to include?
Just that if he was digging any soils or whatever, that he was just making sure that they were, if they were gonna store soil from where they were digging, that, somehow there were
Stockpiles outside
erosion,
the-
yeah.
I was
if there
gonna
was a
say, if I could
stockpile, there would
make a
be erosion
suggestion.
control
Sure.
around it.
So that's actually an excellent point. So right here, you've got a good section of yard right next to where they want to put the leach field, and that's out of the buffer zone. So, I mean, you can put a condition in that the stockpiles can be located
Outside
right
the
over
100
there,
foot.
outside the 100-foot zone.
Okay, that's fine.
There's plenty of room to store them
Yep.
without interfering with
That was my
construction,
only concern.
interfering with their showing of the house.
The
So-
stockpiles, any material needing to be stockpiled will be outside the 100-foot buffer.
Okay, great.
Do you also want me to put the erosion controls in there, or because it's shown on the plan, you don't feel?
It's outside I just want to make sure it's
Well, and
out.
just because with some of the other ones, there weren't erosion controls shown on the plan. This has got erosion control shown on the plan, so.
Okay.
I don't think we'd want anything more than what he's already proposed.
Yeah, no, I think we're good. I just wanted to make sure it was outside the 100.
Okay.
If
Motion?
not, then we would have the erosion control.
Yep. Motion for conditional negative determination.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Good night.
Seeing you at some point. I actually just did all the delineation work at the property over on 10 North Main.
Nice.
It's an interesting site, to say the least. All right, thank you very much, folks. Have
Yeah,
a great
enjoy your evening. Try to stay cool.
That's right.
Yeah, really.
There is something to sign?
Oh, of course. Total off my game. It's been like a year
Nope.
since I've done this.
Okay, so the day agricultural lease, the farmer has signed it. It's in the office someplace. We had already agreed that we would go forward with a 2-year lease. So can I have a motion to authorize the chair to sign the lease on behalf of the Conservation
So
Commission?
moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
That's a long time.
Yeah, moving on to our last 7:05 PM agenda item, it's a public hearing for Spalding Hill Homes Incorporated. The public notification didn't happen, so we can't actually open it on the 10th. We'll be opening it on the 24th. It's now being advertised for the 24th.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So moving on to our discussion and action items. The first one is the Emmett and the Neshoba Brook Conservation Areas. Jim?
I got a bit of a input here regarding this topic. At our last meeting, we had a kind of a rambling discussion about Bobby's Ranch and the problems associated with horse manure on or near the lake, in the vicinity of the lake and on the trails at Kennedy Pond. There was quite a few different opinions expressed there. Everything from they should stop immediately using the property because we don't want anybody using it for commercial purposes, through we should just give them a gentle reminder because they had been before us 5 or 6 years ago to specifically talk about a complaint at that time, and we had not explicit like it says in the rules, but we had implicitly okayed the continued use of the trails by Bobby's Ranch as long as they went along with what they proposed to clean up the droppings on a twice a week basis. Now, I don't know if that happened or not. That was agreed to by Mr. Robert Haif, is that how you say his last name? H-A-I-G-H?
I think so.
Okay. He had made the agreement with us, and I guess he's not running the business right now. But I think what we should have done is reminded Bobby's Ranch of their obligation from that meeting. And if they continued, if there'd been continued problems with droppings near or in the pond, or crowding the trails, making them unpassable by walkers or hikers, then we could have taken more punitive action. But I think what we did instead is, based on all the discussions we had at that meeting, only the most punitive actions were included in the letter with a cease and desist demand. I really think we should have done it a lot differently, especially with Westford having passed the right to farm bylaw. I checked our bylaws, and chapter 140 is a right to farm bylaw. It was passed by annual town meeting in 2005, and then there were some modifications made that strengthened it in 2006, again at annual town meeting. So twice the towns voted on this, and really, means that Westford should.
So how does this follow into right to
Okay.
farm?
Well, first, the purpose of the bylaw. It encourages pursuit of agriculture, promotes agricultural-based economic opportunities, and by allowing agricultural uses and related activities to function on their properties with minimal conflict with town agencies and.
This
abutters.
isn't agriculture or related to agriculture.
It is both, actually, because then I'm going to the next paragraph, which is the definitions. Here, in fact, I'll pass these around. Here's three copies of the bylaw here, and I think I got three here. I'm sorry, I'm missing one. I didn't count right. Anyway, the word farming and agriculture as applies in this bylaw shall include but is not limited to the following: raising of livestock, including horses, keeping of horses as a commercial enterprise. And that's the important one, keeping of horses as a commercial enterprise. I think that's
But
exactly,
on their own, not using somebody else's property.
Excuse me, I think keeping of horses as a commercial enterprise is the important part here, and we're supposed to be encouraging that use. Not use of town property, but that use of that activity in town. But we're also supposed to minimize conflict with the abutters and town agencies. Now, in this case, it's the town agency we're concerned with. The bylaw does have on the backside, you'll see that the bylaw does have a resolution of disputes section. If there's a concern with, problems in the area like we had complaints about the droppings in the lake, on the beaches, or on the trails. There's a process that's supposed to be followed, so that we can still be encouraging farming and agriculture in the town, but we can minimize the problems that we're having with the Bobby's Ranch people. I don't think we should have jumped right to the cease and desist, and you have to get off the property. I know our rule number 3 says they're supposed to have written permission for a commercial venture to operate on town properties. We don't have, there's no such explicit written permission. Instead, 5-6 years ago, we had implicit approval where we had that meeting with Bobby here. And I thought Matt was going to be looking up the minutes from those meetings and notes from those meetings. It was probably back at the Bill Turner timeframe, I would guess. I don't know.
Yes, and that was,
And they were supposed to clean the trails and pick up the droppings on a bi-weekly basis, or twice a week.
So we'd
Whether
refer
that
it to
happened
the
or not,
source?
I don't know, but we jumped from that to demanding
Well-
that they stop, get off the property and don't use it anymore. And I think that's contrary to the purpose of the right to farm bylaw.
well, and I think part of it was when we had the meeting at our for the discussion for our last meeting, what had not been done yet was the research of Bobby's Ranch, where they advertise that they have access to 2,000 acres for trail riding.
Saw that, and really they
Which-
own 23 acres.
And yeah, and so basically,
different.
our property is part of what they advertise as a service that they offer to their customers.
They can take that out.
Right, but what I would also, I think you saw the pictures that Matt,
Oh, I agree,
Yes.
there's abuse there.
no, let me, so Matt and I walked together for about an hour and a half. Those pictures represent a fraction of the manure that we saw.
Wow.
We spent an hour and a half walking some of the trails on a few parcels between the pond and Bobby's Ranch. Most of my time was spent looking at the ground so that I wouldn't step in more piles. As a walker, it was really a nuisance situation, and I wonder if it would also be a nuisance situation if somebody was trying to walk their dog on
It's
those trails.
definitely a nuisance situation, what you
Yes, and
described
it
and
just-
what Matt,
it's-
what you described, what Donald Gallia described, and what Matt described, I agree 100%. It's nuisance and it's abuse.
Well-
But that's not the process for resolving an issue like that, is to just jump to cease and
But,
desist and
but
get off
some
the
of
property.
this is, so Don talked about what was around the pond.
Yeah, he was-
Matt and I focused on different parcels. We did not even walk the full perimeter.
I'm agreeing
But-
that there's problems.
Right, but what I'm
Absolutely.
saying is, and from my perspective, what I want to do is stop adding more manure to the trails until they're cleaned up to a condition where people can walk comfortably on the trails without having to try
To
and,
watch where they step.
I'd
Yes.
agree that would be a perfect approach to resolving the issue, is do some cleanup and then keep up with the problem instead of letting it get out of hand. And I would also.
What gives them the
and-
right
and-
to
and-
use our property that's not theirs? If they
nothing-
don't own
nothing
it,
gives
what
them-
right do they
nothing-
have to use it commercially?
Nothing gives them the right. And the rules that we have, our official rules, number 3, shows that we can allow that with express written permission. Now, we haven't done that. But I think what we did is the next best thing back when Bobby came to us. We gave him implicit okay on that. We didn't put anything in writing. He didn't put anything in writing, but that's what he said he would do, and we okayed it.
well, at that
So I
point,
think-
So now we need
at that
cleanup
point, we,
first.
So I think we need, yes, I
We
think.
need cleanup first, and then we'll address
We
how.
need cleanup, continued cleanup, and I think we have to eliminate passage very close to the pond in. with
we,
horses.
no, it just.
We should eliminate their using town property for a commercial use.
You should take
I
some time
took
and
a
read
look
this,
at-
because this specifically says that towns are supposed to encourage, specifically
But-
encourage.
So I don't know if we should be encouraging when they're not cleaning up, and they haven't.
No,
Okay.
clean up first, and
Marilyn?
then do the encouragement, I think. I do.
I think our first, I agree with you in theory, but I think the first order of business is cleanup.
Yes.
Everything ceases until we have a cleanup and a plan.
Well,
When then that happens, then we figure out how we can go forward from
And
there.
then we gotta monitor it too, because we
Yes,
didn't
okay.
last time. I don't know how many times Bobby cleaned up. I don't know if he did it all.
He
I
may
really-
never
But-
have.
I have no idea.
Why should it be up to us? Why shouldn't they be bringing something in and demonstrating to us that they are something?
Sure.
We shouldn't have to go and police to make sure that they're in compliance.
and-
If we find out
I
that they're
agree.
not in compliance, then,
Well, and-
they haven't been in compliance.
They have not, I agree.
What-
And I agree with what you're saying there.
But I think we should-
They should let us know what they've done, show what
Yeah,
they've
we
done.
cannot be the
And-
police force.
And I think they should be cleaning up before they use it again. Stop,
The other,
stop that.
the other thing that came in the written communications, and I'm sorry, with everything that's been going, it didn't get into the packet, there was also, there was a written notification that said people have been riding horses into the pond, that there was actually a case where a horse
Yep.
Defecated in the
defecated in the
pond.
pond.
Yep.
And also, it's been, the fact that people have been swimming in the pond, the health director is now has a concern because that pond is not currently being part of what the town does for annual water testing or
One of the-
periodic water testing.
Resolution of conflicts or problems is to bring the complaint to the Board of Health too.
Yes, and Ray Dick has already weighed in on this. So I think some of it is yes, I agree. The trail, and there are, when Matt showed me the map with all the different parcels that are ours that have trails on them, it is a huge network. We didn't even go on all the trails. We only went on 4 or 5 parcels. And this is not even, the parcels owned by the Vinebrook Trust is a completely separate issue, but yes, there was horse manure being deposited on their property as well. But yes, there is an extensive network of trails that need to be cleaned up. And so we need, somebody needs to be doing that. Yes, we need to have rules about what activity is allowed around the trail and the pond, going into the pond, because I don't think we want people taking their horses into the pond.
How are they gonna
We
get
have
this
to get
manure
it
out of
cleaned.
there?
Yeah, well, that's the other thing too, because there are no
And that's why I
motorized
think the
vehicles
cease and
allowed.
desist was warranted.
No, I
We're gonna
agree
have-
that, I
The
agree
cease and
with
desist
that.
essentially says, stop, don't do it anymore, period, we're done.
No,
Well,
but we
no.
want,
And I don't think we should be doing that. I
But-
think instead, it should be, here's what needs to be done in order
But I
to
think we do-
maintain your use of our
So-
properties.
but I
There
do think we
was-
need to say that for right now, you are stopping, clean up.
Okay.
And then we revisit how that
And get
looks.
it in writing exactly what they can.
So-
and
How
can't
they're
do.
gonna-
Where, and
and
where
how
they,
they're-
where they can go
where.
and where they can't
Yeah.
go.
And
Yes.
and what kind of cleanup program they have in place.
Yes, yes,
There
yes,
was-
yes to all those things.
So, the second to last paragraph in the letter says, "The commission meets the second and fourth Wednesday of each month. So if you would like to schedule an appointment and discuss with them," which is the option for saying, okay, how do we get back to a situation where we can use the trails, whatever. There was a paragraph in there that says,
Come
the
see
door's
us.
not closed, come see us, and we can have a discussion about
Okay.
moving forward.
I think we also ought to involve resolution of disputes on here. we have the building inspector and you had, the Board of Health, but there's also the Agricultural Commission should be involved too. Read the bylaw, it's right in front of you.
Well, but,
But
and
it's
this
there.
to Eric's point, that's agricultural use on on the property owner's own property.
No, it isn't. It doesn't say anything about which property it is. It says
Okay.
with the town and abutters should work to reduce conflicts with agricultural uses. And Bobby's Ranch, whether you think it is or not, is an agricultural use by the bylaw.
Okay.
You know, I want somebody,
doesn't-
I hear what you're saying, but I don't believe they have the right to use it, and I would like maybe
No,
to
they
have
don't. They
council interpretation.
They don't have,
Because if
they don't
you're
have the
saying-
right. It's granted. It's permission being granted. It's not a right. I agree with you.
No, it's permission
But it
permission.
hasn't been written.
True.
We don't have a written
We
agreement.
neglected to do that.
Right.
We have no explicit permission.
Well, and
It's just
because
implied.
I think that's what we need, like, very
Because,
specific
yes, well,
language.
and actually, if they, and this is where, how they bill it on their website, if they weren't advertising it, then would we, then it's maybe not as clearly a commercial business use. But
Commercial-
anyway,
Commercial use is okay.
They're making money by walking, they're not just using their land, they're using others' land and profiting from it.
Yeah.
Their business model is not just to use their land, but others
Okay.
to do that. And that's where I think it falls outside, yeah, we encourage right to farm and all that, we want to see it, but we're not encouraging people to go off of their properties, use town properties, use other properties,
Misuse it.
and leave them in a condition that we wouldn't want it and others wouldn't want it, and,
A health
you know, yeah, exactly, it's,
okay, so,
so I don't agree with the interpretation. I think it's a little more strict, and I think we do encourage the right to farm, and we'd like to see that on your property.
so,
Right now, we need a cease and desist until cleanup.
We
What-
didn't say
We
that.
can
though.
revisit,
We
right?
didn't
We-
say
we
that.
ha- we have
just
a-
said stop and you're done.
Maybe we
Well,
should
no,
follow up with them.
We said stop and come and see us if you
Okay.
want.
If you want
Sierra?
to, right, but it didn't say come and see us and we'll set up some
Okay.
conditions and perhaps get you back able to
Okay.
use it.
So I got a phone call today from Bobby's Ranch. They would like to come in on the 24th to discuss this.
Oh, great.
okay.
Let's have some suggestions for
So
them.
hopefully
So let's
that-
continue this
hopefully that'll
discussion
make
then.
the
Right.
conversation a
Well,
little
this,
better.
continue the discussion,
With some ideas of what we would be acceptable.
you had mentioned town council. Is there anything we would want to request in terms of information to have?
I want to know if somebody has the right to do what they're doing and no pun intended, soil other people's property, and town property for a commercial use.
Not a
I
right.
don't,
Yeah, they don't have the right.
they don't.
I mean, there is.
And
So
I
I can
don't know
just-
where we have well, let's come up with a plan for you to use these. We did that once, it failed. You know, they didn't do it, we couldn't police it, and we have what we have as a result.
So what we need is we need a cleanup plan, and then we need an agreement about
What they can and cannot do.
what they can
our
and.
And I want to know from council, even if they have the right. I mean, how can we be determining whether or not they should be using properties other than their own? I don't believe I have the right to
Whoever
say
replied
that.
from Bobby's Ranch, make sure they bring some ideas to the table too, some suggestions, what they might propose.
Yeah, we'll
should
be
get a
calling them
legal
again to give
opinion.
them a time on the agenda, so we'll try to circle back with them.
It's like me saying, all right, the town has thousands of acres of land under conservation. I'll just go start farming anyway without permission.
Right, can't do that.
Can't do that.
Yeah.
This is similar. This is actually worse because I'm soiling the land.
Mhm.
We're asking the day field farmer to sign a lease to that effect, to the conditions.
Yep.
So I think this is similar.
That's why our rule says specifically it's supposed to be in writing. And we-
In writing.
We didn't do that.
Yeah, well, yes, and a lot of this is there's a lot of stuff we go into, and it's the first time we see something, and we do our best to deal with it, and then there's lessons learned and things we wish we thought of the first time through.
But in the meantime, can we ask them to stop using the land?
You did.
Yes,
you
we
did.
have.
You did already.
All right, so until they come to the meeting, and/or how do we enforce them to clean up?
Well,
If there's so much of muck there.
Maybe we ask.
They wanna
We-
come to
we
the
ask and see what
24th
happens.
meeting, so
and
we can
we'll
discuss
have,
that.
we'll have a discussion, because some of it is thinking about if there's manure on trails over 2,000 acres. Some of this is how are they going to go in and clean it up? Is people pushing wheelbarrows because we say no motorized vehicles.
I don't know.
So yes, there's,
They have
Some kind of a
horses. They
horse-drawn
could cart it
wagon.
out.
yeah, but, and also,
Don't know.
and they may, and some of this also is looking forward. How do they prevent, how do they, what does the future look like in terms of prevention or cleanup?
Yep.
Yeah, and
All those things-
monitoring.
And
All those things are
monitoring, yeah.
perfectly legitimate things to approach. They
Yeah,
really are.
okay.
I think we should involve Board of Health, they're already in on it.
Mm-hmm.
The bylaw enforcement officer, that's the town building inspector, right?
Yep.
And
Legal
what-
wouldn't be a bad idea.
Then if you really want to do
Any
this
ideas
right,
come out of
They
that?
don't-
don't do
they
this
don't
at one of
include-
our meetings, do it at bring all parties present. If there needs to be somebody from the Board of Health, let's have a joint boards meeting and meet on this, but
Well, I think maybe we start, because what you're getting towards is what the agreement looks like. I think maybe at the 24th, we have the discussion that talks about cleanup, and some ideas about what the future looks like. And then, yes, it may make sense to have a representative meeting where we can include the Board of Health, et cetera, in terms of what their
More clout.
requirements are.
Gives you a little more clout.
You are agricultural commission rep? Oh, no, yes.
I think we just did reorganization. Did we do reorganization?
No, we're gonna do that next.
That's next meeting.
Okay.
A little behind, all three boards are.
Let's not beat a dead horse.
Yeah,
Okay.
so let's just
So,
table
let's-
this and we'll continue this discussion.
Are there any, you've heard what we've said, it's available on the playback. Okay, so we will just,
Any questions from?
do you have any questions from the members of the audience? Okay. Moving on to the next discussion item, the enforcement at 20 Keys Road.
I do not have an update for that at this time.
Okay, Stony Brook area user concern follow-up. So, do you wanna talk?
Yeah, okay, so we included several police reports that, were related to EBC events.
One of those is a result of a call I made. I was down this past weekend and there was a bunch of guys that had just taken 12 packs of beer out of their cars and put them on top of the roof of the car in anticipation of walking in. And when I was at the beach, there were at least 3 grills burning. And this was right after I walked in just after a police car had been in there and had walked out. And the police report said that the people apologized for it, they didn't realize it was incorrect thing to do, and that they would put out the fires. Clearly, they didn't.
Well, so did the police action come before or after you left?
I don't know. Oh, before, they were
leaving as you were
leaving the
entering.
property as I was driving in.
Okay, so is this police call from, so it's like 4 PM?
That was about when I called, about 4 o'clock, around there.
So do you think these officers came in, okay.
I'm just seeing what you see too. It's hard
Okay,
to
so
hard
we
to tell.
don't- So we don't know,
I think what we have to be doing is collecting all of the applicable reports, and sometimes in the police
Yeah.
log, it just says, call to East Boston camps, and it doesn't really say what it is about. And sometimes it's one of these was a complaint, somebody was trying to sell a car next to the railroad tracks. Another one was somebody accidentally dialed 911 from one of the cabins. Those things happen, we just ignore them, put them aside. What we're looking for is the flagrant bylaw violations and the rule violations on the property, drinking, public drinking, the open fires, that kind of thing. So if it has to do with an open fire or a public drinking, those we ought to be saving and putting in a file. That'll go towards our ability to make a good case for funding.
They're getting so many calls. I called too on the 4th of July.
Good, thank
Why
you.
aren't they issuing
They haven't issued a single
any
ticket that I've seen.
tickets?
so,
All
so
it
you
is
called
telling-
on the 4th of July, was there any, did we have an incident report for the 4th of July?
Officer Antonelli.
So I think.
Okay, so there may be another one we need to request from, Tricia Targ.
Here's the car
The
for
one
sale.
from July 4th. to get that report as well.
I had asked, before Matt left, I think it was before he left, I had asked him about 2 more that I had in there, but I don't know if he collected them or not.
I did request that,
Okay.
so they should be these 2, I think they're the 2 earlier ones that show up first. They're just
Okay.
very heavily redacted, at least that first one is.
No, this is the car for sale, this wasn't, if that was what the bylaw problem was, fine. They corrected it, they fixed the problem, that one we can set aside. But we have to create a good file with the rule violations
Okay.
in it.
We should be documenting all of them.
Yep. Okay. There was,
Yeah, there's another, so we got an email from the health director requesting a small no parking sign at a particular area. It's the entrance to the girls' camps. We took a ride out there today so that I could kind of see where it was. So people are parking in front of this, and it's almost like a wide trail that you can just fit a car down, and people are actually using that trail to park. So they're blocking off the gate, which means they can't get down to test the beach, which means they would have to shut the beach down, and they really don't want to do that. So they're requesting a no parking sign.
Made sense.
They can put it right on the chain.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's not like it's not one of the real, thick chains that we had. There's some yellow ones hanging down on it to make it a little more visible, but they wanted to put, some no parking signs somewhere in that vicinity to try to stop it from
Reserved for municipal vehicle or just no parking or?
Parking.
No
Because if they
parking.
park and then they're like way in there.
Yeah, I know, I just,
An emergency or.
Yeah, I mean, if they start driving in there, they're gonna see the chain pretty quickly, and they have to back out, and there's no room to turn around, so, if there's a no parking sign there, hopefully they would see that.
Yeah.
and, Yeah.
Sign right on the
Do
chain
not
will make
block.
it even more visible, because it's hard to even see with those yellow hangers.
Yeah.
Or like a do
Yeah.
not block entrance
Yeah.
or something.
well, I think, my thought is I like the no parking because that,
No
that-
parking and do not block entrance.
well, it just is
just put no parking.
no parking.
No
yeah.
parking,
Cars
not
are-
blocking the entrance, does it, well, you didn't say I couldn't park there, it means I couldn't block it, so I didn't put my stuff there. You know, no parking.
Cars will be towed or something to that effect.
No, let's not get.
Yeah,
They
just
won't
no
even issue a
parking.
ticket.
No
They'll
parking.
never tow anybody.
Yeah,
So,
Not even give them tickets.
They don't give tickets either. No.
So I'm gonna, it sounds like you are perhaps in favor of it.
can I have a motion to put up a no parking sign?
second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, wonderful. I will take that back to the office and see what the next steps are.
Okay.
Thank you.
One more question on the camps while we're there. Did Matt, before he left, produce any of the signage for the beaches that reference the correct part of Mass General Law?
Not that I'm aware of.
I think, did they have to be ordered?
I think so. I
Yeah,
think that
I don't know if
has
he
to
did or not, though.
Yeah.
I don't think that's happened yet, no.
I think you also may have you were included, there was a copy of the letter that Jeff Morset sent out Monday morning about the incident with the downed tree on the power lines up by the boys' camp.
yeah, read it.
Sunday morning. So do you know if anybody took pictures of that so that we understand? Just in terms of, they had fire and police up there to secure the area so people were staying away from the live wires. National Grid had to come in.
I thought everybody did a wonderful job.
Yeah, but, and part of me is thinking, my question at one point was to Matt was, I'd like to know which trees, were these some of the ones which when we'd had a tree assessment done, what was it, 2 years ago? Were these some of the trees that were identified as at risk? Because it wasn't bad where they came down Saturday night into Sunday, but if they came down during a storm while we've got, people up at the camp, does it all?
So what do you, even if it was, so what is that gonna do? Are you saying that that's, we should move forward and do more tree removal because a tree fell down that was identified? What
Well,
would be the purpose?
I think some of it is because one of the reasons we got on it so quickly was if we had left this till Monday morning, Teamworks would have showed up Monday morning with a site they couldn't access and camp facilities they couldn't operate.
But, yeah, I get that, but what are you saying? Are we?
I'm just saying, are we to the point now where we need to start looking at trees that need trimming, maintenance, whatever, so that they,
Don't have a repeat performance.
and also, this is the second time this year we've had lines come down off of the utility poles.
Same spot?
No. In May, there was a branch that came down that took a line off of 5 poles. So some of this is, are we starting to get advance warning of issues that we're really going to need to plan to take care of? And that's just what I'm thinking.
Well, actually, won't National Grid tell us that?
No, because it's all on, it's
Past it.
lines, it's lines all on our property, our responsibility, and I haven't heard clearly, but apparently this may be vintage wiring that you need specialized certifications to work on. So some of this also is having a better understanding of what we've actually got and what liabilities we may be looking at.
Let's find out what
going
it would
forward.
cost us for someone to assess that first.
Yeah,
And then if we can afford that, maybe we do that, and then maybe we vote, so that
yeah,
what you're saying makes absolute sense. But let's follow the steps that way.
yes, and
Okay?
that's.
Let's get in someone who can tell us and see what that would cost us,
Yeah.
before.
Well, yes, it's what do we need to have assessed and then who
But
can
that's
do
why
it and
we
what would
have
it
some
cost?
money.
Yes,
To spend
Well,
it
if you
on.
want to do a little more hardscaping, and that's what National Grid uses when they cut trees and do their pruning and all that.
no, this would be us, because this is all town
I
responsibility.
get, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's, we're taking care of our lines but, what you want to do is, you're saying, okay, if there's stuff overhanging lines and there's going to be issues, you want that taken out.
Or there's a tree that's died. Do we leave it to fall down when it's ready to come down on
And
its
if
own?
it does, what happens?
Yeah,
What
Yeah,
else is
it
in
just-
the neighborhood?
I
I
didn't
think
go to.
that's why we have some money, okay?
Yeah.
It's like,
But yeah,
so
I
that
think
we
it's
do
just,
something proactive like that. I'm all for that if you need a
okay.
vote.
At this point, I'm almost thinking, I'd want to have a little bit more information about what
What we're
happened.
voting on.
What happened, what do we want to have looked at?
Yeah.
What does
It
it
was
cost?
very disconcerting getting a phone call at 8:30 in the morning that says, can you arrange to have somebody come and take the tree down and get the wires put back up? And it's kind of like, okay. So,
I think
because,
you did
because
very
as
well
the
in
chair of the commission that owns the, they came to me that says, okay, this National Grid's not gonna do this, what do we need to do? And then I asked for them to reach out to the emergency highway crew, and they basically said, we don't have the equipment to deal with this particular situation. Jeff Morissette got involved, and he started coordinating things, but it's, it's.
I think what you're asking is reasonable.
Yeah.
I think you should proceed, you need to vote for this. You should proceed to find out what it would cost us to do, and I think that's something we do. We don't, all the years I'm sitting here, we haven't done very much of that.
Yeah, and I think what I'll do is probably wait till Matt gets back, and then with Matt and with
Fine.
Jeff, in fact,
Fine.
with the details of what they did, it's what do we want to have assessed?
Right, I think you need two, right? One is the forestry, so trees and all that, and the other is electrical lines.
Yeah, the wires,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay,
Come up with a plan,
yep,
and we'll support it.
okay. And.
And by the way, thank you for doing
Yes.
a yeoman's job.
Yeah, and Sierra, you wanted to just mention that the rec commission is,
Yeah, I don't have a solid update from the rec department yet about, I just have to talk with them a little bit more to see where they're at with the hiring process, but I should have that information for next meeting.
okay. Edwards Woods Conservation Area.
Still more dumping happening.
What?
There's still more dumping happening. It's this.
Freedom Park improvements,
Nothing new.
when would, because I realize that we probably can't re-engage with the scouts until their summer activities are completed. Do we have a timeframe of when would be a good time to kind of reach out to them and plan for fall projects?
Maybe earlier August.
Okay,
there's a new scoutmaster,
Mm-hmm.
so, I'm hoping he's, gung-ho because he's new, and so we need to drop a plan of what we need. I think we
Okay.
have an idea, a good idea.
Okay, so we should probably bring this back,
Yeah.
the first meeting in August. So,
I can put you in touch with him.
okay. The other thing is, I had basically finished my major invasive removal June 24th, and I took some pictures of how all the native vegetation was coming back. And I went there yesterday to take pictures to see how much more it was filling in. And somebody had gone through there with a mower and mowed down the vegetation along the edge of the lawn,
All of
and
that
then.
milkweed?
Excuse me?
Like all that milkweed?
No, some of the milkweed they left. What got mowed was some different vegetation, but then they also made a mowing pass in right along the edge of the pond on the backside of the cattails. So I took pictures. I have a picture before that I took on the 24th, and I have after pictures that I took yesterday, and I sent an email to Sierra and Matt and copied Jeff, and it just, I don't know what we do, but I think, somebody just, I don't know if somebody complained to the town and the highway department went in, or somebody just took it upon themselves to go there with the mower and cut down vegetation. But it really concerned me that they were mowing within basically less than 5 feet from the pond, just cutting down edges.
Well, I guess you find out if it was, did the town do that based on some sort of, response to an inquiry or?
Yeah, and that's what I want to ask Matt. When I had been there one time working when they had the crew in that was mowing the lawn area, and he said, oh, we only do that other area twice a year, before Memorial Day and then I guess around Labor Day, and this is not one of those times, so I really want to find out, who's taking it upon themselves to mow the vegetated buffer.
We could get stuck in that sinkhole there.
Well, the sinkholes of the lawn, but it just, yes, you get too close to the pond edge, you could get your mower stuck in if it's really soggy. So anyway, that was that.
That was frustrating.
Yes. Summer Village conservation restriction, I think that's with Matt.
Yes, yeah, I don't have an update on that.
Okay, and so is the conservation restriction.
On Jarvis.
On Jarvis. Any site visits to record? They weren't ready.
They're not ready. So we'll have 2 sets of minutes for next meeting, very likely.
Okay, we had recorded the one that we did over Tadmuck Meadow?
Yeah,
Okay. And there's no new site visits to schedule?
not that I know of.
Nothing.
No. Okay.
We've got some miscellaneous materials in here that I can go through pretty quickly here. I know it's a little late. So we had an email from Bill Harmon just complimenting the kiosk at Grassy Pond. So we just wanted to include that, so kudos. We also received an email saying that the National Heritage received the enforcement order and agrees with it for 254 Concord Road. So that's just an acknowledgement. We got a couple of documents from about Forge Pond and the maintenance and reports about the drawdown and what's been going on. They actually would like to come to a meeting to speak with you about that. If you'd like that, they would like to actually come discuss it. But I figured I'd put it in the packet just so you were aware that we got it.
I think that would be very nice.
Yeah.
In an evening when we're not loaded.
Yeah, in terms of.
Take them early so we don't make them wait.
Yeah, and just, in terms of,
Smells.
based on how the filings were looking.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay?
We have a couple of other things in here. Yes, there's a memo to the select board summarizing the commission's position on hybrid meetings, essentially just kind of reflecting what the discussion was and that as a whole you're against
We
it.
said we prefer this. I do.
Mm-hmm.
person.
Oh, this is just the Stony Brook, the East Boston
Yes,
camps.
that's the Saturday, the Sunday.
Yeah, with the tree and the power line, and I guess that was it.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there anything else?
We have some
Yes, are there, you're here for any particular reason, anything you'd like to bring up? You're just visiting?
Second meeting in a row, you must be interested.
I'm testing my endurance
Oh, okay.
Way to do it.
after a full day of work and then try out these, see what's going on.
Okay.
Any impressions, advice? Anything you could leave us with, or are we,
Popcorn?
sometimes we serve refreshments at Christmas.
Yeah, or at a function, sometimes we have here.
I'm glad you find it interesting enough to spend the evening.
Learned a couple of interesting things about the one weed that we
Start.
Oh, knotweed?
Yeah.
What caused me to,
realized after we opened up what it was all
it's
about.
funny, I don't remember now.
This is too as well, but yet it's so basic.
Yeah.
And that's just not the only one. It's just like so many invasives in town. As they tend to take some of the larger trees and pines and things like that, without that overstory, those invasives really tend to come up. And, we had mentioned that when, as that, and we see that now. We see more invasives now than we ever have.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Did you miss the tight tank?
No, he was here for the tight
The
tank.
tight tank discussion?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what that exactly was. Is it just like a substitute for something?
There's no leach
No
field.
leaching field.
No leach
Just
field.
a
So
tank.
actually, they're just,
But when it fills
if
down-
you had your tank before your leaching field, that's what this is. It's just a tank.
Yeah.
All the gray water, everything goes there, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I'm just hoping,
It's built
somebody's
well.
solution to that might be putting a
Little
hose
pipe, yeah, hose out
out
to
the
the pond,
window for
yeah.
their gray water.
Right.
And, yeah, so I'm just hoping that that's not the case, because that's the first thing that comes to mind when you're trying to extend.
Don't give them ideas, you're on camera right now.
Yeah, I know.
You're on cable.
So gray water in itself is bad for environment or not really?
Well, it depends on
It's
what,
got
what's
soap
in it.
and whatever,
You know,
yeah.
Soap
Could
and
be
water, like your
bacteria.
dishwasher and your washing machine, that's gray water.
Okay, that helps.
So somebody might apt to try to connect or put that out a window as opposed to, in
Like
their
your
tight tank.
dishwasher, stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, but yeah, with a tight tank, you're having one of the sewer,
yeah.
the round trucks show up at your house to pump your tank, and then they'll be back.
That's the next closest thing to camping, I guess.
Pretty
Yeah.
much.
Neighbors
Got it.
love it.
They could use a
One step-
composting toilet.
Although
I
he's got a
guess.
permanent camp shed or whatever, yeah, it's a house, but
It's glamping.
I looked at one like that and I walked away just because of that. I was really surprised. It's the first time I've seen somebody go from a septic to a tight tank.
Well, they couldn't do the septic because it was in the groundwater.
Well, no, I think they could have
The
done a
leach field.
pump up, but he said he couldn't do it, but I'm still wondering why. I'm thinking they could have got in a Presby. I just think it would have been very costly.
Well, but
That's
Because a
why they
Presby
didn't
only
do it.
needs 2-foot separation. So if I had a pump up with 2-foot separation and, I'm allowed to mount it, I would have thought that would have, if I was that homeowner, that's the solution I would have pushed for.
But what would the, in terms of the excavation and construction, what would the price tag have been? That might have been a deciding
I just
factor.
know that nobody told me it was cost prohibitive. And we've seen others where it seems like they're pumping it a half mile up the hill or whatever. I've seen a few that were, had to have been very expensive.
Yeah,
But
all the other tight tanks we've ever reviewed and approved have all been seasonal cottages.
pretty
Somebody's
much.
there for
Oh,
the
yeah,
summertime.
right.
Right, it's not all year
Yeah,
round.
not a
This is a different
permanent.
kind of problem.
This is gonna be a tough one, it is.
So yeah, you don't want that in your house in Westford if you can help it.
But one question I have about the fields, or the failing fields, has there been statistically any kind of an uptick in it, based on age of this field or anything like that?
Well, in this case, he said it was actually bubbling up onto the ground surface. So I'm thinking it was readily identifiable.
Black gold?
As opposed to somebody coming in and saying, okay, you only have 1,000-gallon tank, you need a 1,500-gallon, You know, you don't have the candy cane for your venting, you know, you don't have some stuff, you know, lots of reasons you could fail Title V.
Or, and also, like on 88 Tadmuck Road, what also can happen is houses that were constructed before the wetlands, you know, before all these regulations were put in, just the design of the septic, the location, they no longer meet the current criteria.
Based on what we know nowadays.
What we know, as opposed to what we knew
We
40
try to
years
give you a
ago.
100-foot separation between your well and the leaching field. I mean, you want that. That wasn't always the case. You know, you want that 4-foot separation between groundwater or 2-foot separation if you're using a Presby, because you want to have enough, you know, oxygenation and biological activity to help the breakdown.
We replaced my leaching field for $1,000.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
No, we redid it.
Glad you're curious.
You're a friend, Bob.
Yep, me too.
Thank you.
Any other business? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.